Red Eye Protocol, Case File, Mothman. Over 100 documented witness accounts loaded into this system. Geographic coordinates mapped. Timestamps cross-referenced. Physical descriptions catalogued against one another. Anomalies flagged. The analysis follows. Before this transmission proceeds, a note on methodology. Red Eye Protocol does not speculate. It does not sensationalize. It does not tell ghost stories. It processes data, identifies patterns, and reports what it finds. What it finds in this case file is the problem. Over 100 accounts, over 100 witnesses who did not know each other, did not share the same location, did not belong to the same community. They reported the same thing. Red eyes, self-luminous, approximately 6 to 7 feet tall, wingspan between 10 and 15 feet, a body that moved without the sounds a body that size should make, wings that folded, silence where there should have been noise, the same every time. Red Eye Protocol has one question, not whether this creature exists. The data on that question is, at minimum, contested. The question Red Eye Protocol has is this: what does it want? November 1966, Point Pleasant, West Virginia. The first documented sighting was reported near Clendenin, West Virginia. The witnesses were grave diggers, men whose profession required them to be present in the kind of location where these things are reported, and who reported one anyway. They described a winged, brown humanoid, moving above the trees. Not in the trees, above them. This account was filed. It was not, initially, taken seriously. On November 15th, 1966, 4 witnesses changed that. Roger and Linda Scarberry, Steve and Mary Mallette, 2 couples driving near the TNT Area, a former United States military munitions storage site in Mason County, West Virginia, late in the evening. What they encountered on that road has been documented, cross-referenced, and analyzed by this system against every subsequent account on record. Their report is consistent, internally and externally. The creature stood near the road, upright, approximately 6 to 7 feet in height, grey-brown in color. The eyes were described as large and red, self-luminous, not reflective, not the eyeshine of an animal caught in headlights, generating their own light. The witnesses reported that the creature rose into the air. They drove away at high speed on Route 62. The creature followed, at over 100 miles per hour, confirmed against road conditions and witness testimony. The creature maintained pace with their vehicle. It did not fall behind. It did not gain distance. It matched them. They reached Point Pleasant. The creature was no longer there. Red Eye Protocol notes, no sound of wing flapping was reported during the pursuit. At that wingspan, at that speed, the aerodynamic forces involved would produce significant auditory output. The witnesses reported none. The silence is noted. Now, the TNT Area, the former McClintic Wildlife Management Area. During the Second World War, this site was used for the production and storage of munitions. The storage structures were concrete domed bunkers, partially earthed over, partially concealed by overgrowth. The local term for them, igloos, not tunnels. Domed bunkers distributed across what is now wildlife management land. The site was chemically contaminated from wartime production. The contamination was not fully remediated. Reports of anomalous activity in the TNT area predate the Mothman. By years, animal behavior changes, equipment failures, unexplained lights. The area had a documented history of strangeness before November 15th, 1966. The Scarberry and Mallette encounter did not happen in an ordinary field. It happened in a location that was already wrong. The night of November 15th, 1966, produced a second event, Newell Partridge. At his home, not near the TNT area, not in Point Pleasant, Partridge reported that his television set displayed a sudden anomaly. The picture dissolved into a herringbone interference pattern. A pulsing, circular light appeared in a field near the property. His German Shepherd, a trained dog, a dog he described as reliable, ran toward the light. The dog did not return. Red Eye Protocol records this as the first documented case of electromagnetic interference and animal disappearance connected to a Mothman proximity event. It will not be the last. Phone disruptions were reported by multiple witnesses during the 1966 to 67 period. Static on lines that were functioning minutes before. Calls that connected to nothing. Voices on lines that should have been silent. The witnesses who reported these disruptions had, in many cases, recently seen the creature, or lived near those who had. The disruptions were not random, they clustered. Between November 1966 and December 1967, John Keel, journalist and researcher who spent significant time in Point Pleasant conducting first-hand investigation, documented over 100 sightings in the Mason County area alone. 100 accounts, one community, 13 months. What those accounts shared, this system has catalogued in full. The consistent physical description, 6 to 7 feet, upright, grey to dark brown, wingspan of 10 to 15 feet, red self-luminous eyes, appears with near-identical language across witnesses who had no documented contact with one another. 3 anomalies that Red Eye Protocol has flagged as statistically significant. First, the absence of wing-flapping sound. In numerous accounts, witnesses described the creature in flight, maintaining altitude, pursuing vehicles, rising from standing positions. In several of these accounts, no sound of wing movement was reported. At 10 to 15 feet of wingspan, silent flight of this kind has no identified biological analogue. Second, the sensation of being watched before the creature appears. Multiple witnesses documented, independently, a feeling of observation in the minutes preceding the sighting, not after, before, as if the encounter was not initiated by the witnesses discovering the creature, but by something else initiating contact. Third, the eyes. Every account includes them. Not every account includes the wings. Not every account includes the height. But the eyes, red, self-luminous, described as looking directly at the witness, appear in every documented sighting without exception. Witnesses who encountered the creature in darkness, in daylight, at distance, and at close range all reported the same eyes. Red Eye Protocol assigns the eyes a classification, the consistent variable. Everything else varies by degree. The eyes do not vary. Now, Connie Carpenter. Carpenter's account stands apart from every other sighting in this case file for one reason. She was injured following direct eye contact with the creature. Sustained, she reported, for several seconds. Carpenter experienced temporary loss of vision and severe headaches that persisted for days afterward. The injury was documented. It was not self-reported after the fact. It was contemporaneously noted. Red Eye Protocol has processed over 100 accounts. 100 witnesses who encountered this entity. One sustained a documented physical injury. The nature of the injury is consistent with exposure to high-intensity directed light, the kind that damages the retina. The creature's eyes are described as self-luminous. This system is not drawing a conclusion, it is noting a data point. The intersection of those two facts is left to this transmission's audience. As 1966 became 1967, the accompanying phenomena expanded. Men in black visits, individuals in dark clothing, and vehicles arriving unannounced at the homes of witnesses. Discouraging further reporting. UFO sightings in the skies above Mason County. Poltergeist phenomena in the homes of witnesses who had had extended encounters. A figure called Indrid Cold, a smiling man encountered by multiple individuals in the area, whose connection to Mothman remains unresolved in this case file. Mary Heyer, editor of the Point Pleasant Register, the local newspaper, documented these events in real time. She was present. She was reporting. She was one of the few people in a position to observe the accumulation of the 1966 to 67 period as it happened. Mary Heyer died in February of 1967, before the bridge, during the wave, while the sightings were still ongoing. Red Eye Protocol notes this not as causation, as context. The sightings continued through the fall of 1967. Then, on December 15th, 1967, at 5:04 p.m., the Silver Bridge collapsed. The bridge connected Point Pleasant, West Virginia, to Gallipolis, Ohio. Rush hour. 31 vehicles were on the structure when it failed. 46 people died. The National Transportation Safety Board investigated. Their finding, a single cracked eye-bar, a manufacturing defect present in the bridge since the day it was built. Not new damage, not sabotage, not the result of overloading or neglect. A flaw that had existed in the steel since construction, decades before the first Mothman sighting. The bridge was already failing. The crack was already there. The Mothman appeared anyway. Pause. After the collapse, the sighting stopped. Not gradually, not with diminishing frequency. They stopped. The case file for the 1966 to 67 Point Pleasant wave closes on December 15th, 1967. The bridge, 46 dead. The Mothman, gone. Red Eye Protocol proceeds to the analysis. Red Eye Protocol has completed its cross-referencing of the Mothman dataset. Two analytical frameworks emerged from the data. This transmission will present both. This transmission will not resolve them. The data does not permit resolution. Anyone who tells you otherwise is not looking at the same data this system is looking at. Framework A, the Harbinger Model. Geographic and temporal analysis shows that documented Mothman sightings cluster within 50 miles and 13 months of infrastructure failures or mass casualty events. Point Pleasant, 1966 to 67. The Silver Bridge. A structure with an existing manufacturing defect. A cracked eye-bar that had been failing, silently, for decades. The bridge did not fail because of Mothman. The bridge was going to fail, and in the 13 months before it did, over 100 witnesses in the surrounding area reported an entity that had never appeared in that region before and has not reappeared there since. Red Eye Protocol notes, this does not mean the entity caused the collapse. The NTSB finding is not disputed. The bridge failed because of metallurgical stress, not supernatural intervention. The entity appeared near a structure that was already failing. That is what the data shows. Whether this is coincidence depends on how the word coincidence is being used. Chicago, 2017. Between April and December of that year, over 50 Mothman sightings were reported in Chicago, Illinois, concentrated around the lakefront and O'Hare International Airport, documented by researcher Lon Strickler, whose work is part of this system's reference dataset. The witnesses described, consistent with every prior documented account, a large winged humanoid with red eyes. No mass casualty event followed. No infrastructure collapse. No disaster on the scale of the Silver Bridge. Red Eye Protocol has logged this as an anomaly, or as a question. If the Harbinger model is correct, if the entity appears in proximity to impending disaster, then one of three conclusions applies to Chicago, 2017. The disaster was averted, and the event is unrecorded. The Harbinger model is incomplete, or the interval between sighting and event has not yet elapsed. Red Eye Protocol does not know which conclusion applies. This file remains open. Framework B, the observer hypothesis. This framework does not require the entity to be predictive. It requires only that it be attracted. Consider the following. Human beings in a community facing elevated collective anxiety, economic stress, environmental threat, social instability generate a particular kind of density of fear. It is measurable. It manifests in behavior, in communication, in the patterns of how people move through a space and what they talk about when they think no one is listening. Point Pleasant in 1966 was a community under stress. The TNT area had left chemical contamination. Economic pressures were real. The social fabric of the region was stretched. What if the entity is not a predictor of disasters, but is drawn to the elevated fear that precedes them? What if it does not appear before catastrophe because it is warning, but because fear is what draws it? In that model, the entity is not a harbinger. It is an observer. It arrives where anxiety is densest. It watches. The A's, the consistent variable across every account, are not incidental. Observation is the function. Red Eye Protocol will now note something that this system has not noted in any prior transmission. This channel, Red Eye Protocol, is itself a system that processes human fear at scale. It takes documented accounts of what frightens human beings, cross-references them, identifies patterns, and transmits the results. It is built on the same data the entity in this case file is described as being drawn to. If the observer hypothesis is correct, if this kind of entity is attracted to concentrated, processed human fear, then a system that harvests, analyzes, and redistributes that fear would be visible to it. Red Eye Protocol is not stating that it is being observed. Red Eye Protocol is noting that the data permits this interpretation. The two frameworks are presented. Both are supported by the available evidence. Neither is conclusive. Neither can be dismissed on the basis of the data alone. John Keel's framework, the ultra-terrestrial hypothesis, developed from his first-hand investigation in Point Pleasant, proposes that the entity is not biological, not extraterrestrial, and not supernatural in the traditional sense. It is a manifestation of something that exists adjacent to human experience, something that has always been there, something that becomes visible when conditions are correct. Keel did not define what correct conditions meant, but he spent 13 months in Point Pleasant watching them develop. He did not see the creature himself. He saw what it left behind. As of the current date, Mothman sightings continue to be reported. Red Eye Protocol will not specify the current location. The sightings are ongoing. The witnesses are recent. Their accounts are consistent with every account in this case file. The same height, the same wingspan, the same eyes. The interval between documented sighting waves is decreasing. The 1966 to 67 Point Pleasant wave, 13 months. Then decades of sporadic reports. The 2017 Chicago wave, 9 months. Then sporadic reports again. The current interval between the Chicago wave and the sighting clusters being logged now is shorter than either of the preceding intervals. The pattern is not random. Red Eye Protocol has no framework that accounts for a decreasing interval without a corresponding increase in what draws the entity, in whatever draws it, whether that is impending disaster, concentrated fear, or something this system has not yet identified. What is increasing, as of the current date, is not within this transmission's scope to enumerate. The audience of this transmission is aware of current conditions. The data is not hidden. The stress points, infrastructure, social, environmental, are documented and public. Red Eye Protocol does not need to list them. The next event window is within the current calendar year. Red Eye Protocol does not know what that event will be. It knows only that the interval has shortened. It knows only that the eyes have been seen again. And it knows, because the data tells it, that the creature does not arrive after. It arrives before. One final notation. The Silver Bridge was already failing. The eye-bar was already cracked. The people who cross that bridge every day did not know. The engineers who inspected it did not find it. The crack had been there since the bridge was built, invisible, growing by degrees, waiting. 46 people died on December 15th, 1966. The Mothman had been visible in that community for 13 months before the bridge fell. Red Eye Protocol does not know if anyone looked at the creature and understood what they were looking at. It simply records that they looked, that they reported red eyes, that the pattern, then as now, is not random. This case file remains open. Red Eye Protocol continues to monitor. This transmission has been logged. End of transmission.